good evening to everyone. This is Attorney Amian April Alcazar, AAA Live, where your academic goals are advanced and achieved. Tonight, we'll be joined by Dr. Carrie Ruth Humphreys. She's the Department Chair of the Department of Global Affairs and has a field of study in political science. So, Dr. Humphreys, maybe you can give some greetings to our viewers, students, parents, faculty, administrators, and stakeholders in the education sector.
Hello, everyone. I'm excited to be here. We're coming to you from Martin, Tennessee. This is my home office where I have spent much of the pandemic for the last year and a half. So I'm excited to be with you all tonight.
Okay, thank you so much for giving us your valuable time. And so we're very much interested to have this important discussion because of, like, as you've mentioned, we've been under the pandemic for more than a year right now. So this digital technology is continuing to be very important to us, but we would like to continue our relationship even beyond our university. So firstly, maybe I'd like to ask you, as a young person, what sort of interest did you have and how and when did you decide that you wanted to be in the field of study that you eventually pursued?
So my interest when I was in high school, I was in the French club and was taking French classes, and I was also on the debate team.
Yes.
And so that was really kind of some of my early interests that helped to get me to the place that I am today. I
Yes.
took my first trip abroad when I was in 10th grade. It was one of those EF educational tours. And that
Yes.
really just kind of cemented my whole, I want to do this again and again and again.
Yes.
And so those were kind of some of the formative experiences and exposures that I had. When I
Mhm.
got to college, however, I was undeclared. I didn't have a set major in mind. I really didn't know what I
Mhm.
wanted to do. I wasn't one of those students who came in knowing exactly what I wanted to do and had a
Yes.
path. Instead, I spent those first couple of years just taking my general education classes, kind of figuring out, how do I take these interests in, debate and the world and French
Yes.
and turn it into something. And
Mhm.
it was when I took my first political science class, which was Intro to International Relations, that I thought, like, this might be the way that I bring all of these things together. And
Mhm.
so then I started, looking more into political science as an option, and kind of just went from there. Also, when I started college, I had a work study job. So
Yes.
it's essentially a scholarship where you can get a job on campus to help fund your education. And so
Mhm.
my first job on campus was working in the study abroad office and the office that
Really?
helped with teaching English as a second language. And I remember
Mhm.
one of my first jobs is I had to drive, international students to take their TOEFL exam, but it was like
Yes.
me and one student in a 12 passenger van. And
Yeah.
it was so memorable because I was like, this is way too big and I don't know where I'm going. And so
Yes.
I've just kind of had these, international interactions and experiences and interests from the very beginning.
Mhm.
So it just worked out that political science ended up being a really good fit, and I minored in French. So
Mhm.
that really kind of helped take me in the direction that I ended up going.
Yeah. So you were talking about your experiential learnings early on
Mhm.
as a young person. So what do you think would be the skills and proficiencies that a young person should develop in order to be in your field of study besides driving a 12-person van?
Yes, that is not a skill that is on my resume these days, but it was a very
Okay.
formative experience, to say the least.
Exactly.
Uh, I would say that, I would really encourage students to take advantage of as many experiential learning opportunities as possible.
Yes.
I mean, college goes by really fast, but don't say no to these opportunities, because these experiences are not likely to present themselves once you get into the workforce, right? I mean, there will be different experiences, but the types of experiences that you can have in college, through
Mhm.
organizations, through experiences like Model United Nations,
Mhm.
internships, travel studies, study abroad, I would really just encourage students to take advantage of as many of those as possible.
Mhm.
When I was in college, study abroad was really expensive, so I didn't have the more traditional study abroad experience.
Yes.
Instead, a lot of students who were also minoring in French and that I had French classes with participated in a teaching English in France program. And
Mhm.
so I ended up applying for that, was accepted, and I took off a year between my junior and senior year of college and lived in France and taught English. So I kind of created my own experiential learning opportunity in a more non-traditional way.
Yes.
But I would just encourage students, like whatever opportunities you have at your disposal,
Mhm.
apply, right? I mean, you'll never know if you can get in and participate unless you apply. So definitely apply for as many as possible. In terms of skills and competencies that would
Yeah.
be useful for political science and international studies,
Yes.
the ability to research
Mhm.
is a really useful skill that will carry you in college and into the workforce.
Yes.
An awareness of different cultures and experiences.
Mhm.
We can't live in bubbles. We really need to know about what's happening in the world and the experiences and situations in other countries and with other cultures.
Mhm.
Also, a understanding of both national and international institutions, policy processes. Even in academia, right, there are institutions. We are an institution, but we also have, institutions within our environment and then our own processes, right? I mean, you kind of have to, once you understand one, you can kind of then dissect them in other situations as well. And then, of course, communication, right? Communication is going to be another key skill to
Mhm.
have.
Yeah. So you talked about those skills and proficiencies, and eventually, how did you leverage that when you had your career trajectory? Maybe you can tell us about why you actually wanted to be in the academic community eventually, and then using all of these competencies that you were able to develop as a young person in your career.
Absolutely. So my path was not a straight path, much like when I started college and I didn't know what I wanted to do. It was
Not
much the
A to
same
B.
when, yeah, when I got out of college, I was like, now what should I do?
Yeah.
So I always tell my students, like, it's not just this linear straight line of like point A to point B, right? My path was like this, and for some of you it'll be straighter. For others of you, it will be
Yeah.
like me, but they're all good, right? They're all okay. And there's really no wrong path that gets you to a destination. And sometimes it's the little detours that add the most to your experiences. So, I
Yes.
tell them, don't shy away from that.
Yes.
Um, but in terms of my career path, like I said, I graduated college. I wasn't 100% sure what I wanted to do. So I was leaning towards grad school.
Mhm.
Figured I would start with a master's because I wasn't sure if I wanted to kind of lock myself in more with a PhD in teaching, or
Mhm.
maybe get the master's and apply for the foreign service. So I
Mhm.
decided, I'll start with the master's and kind of just see if I get like the light bulb of like, this is what I meant to do.
Okay.
So I graduated, took a year off because a lot of the political science programs that I was looking at wanted a stronger background in political economy, and I had only taken one economics class. So I thought, I could use a little break. So I'll take one or two classes, just kind of bulk up my transcript with some economics classes, and put in my applications.
Yeah.
So, that kind of, was the first little detour of like, okay, it wasn't straight from college to grad school. It was like
Exactly.
college year, then grad school. So
Yeah.
we moved to Utah. That's where
Uh-huh.
I took the accepted for my master's in political science. So I
Mhm.
spent 2 years doing my master's in political science. Finished that, and still really wasn't sure what I wanted to do.
Mhm.
So I mean, I had a lot of good experiences in grad school, but it wasn't, like I said, there still wasn't kind of that light bulb moment of like, aha, this is what I meant to do. So
Yeah.
after I graduated, they had kind of a dire situation where they lost an instructor, and so they
Mhm.
came to me and they said, we desperately need somebody to teach comparative politics. Could you teach comparative politics? And I was like, I don't know, can I? Am I qualified with a master's to teach, at the college level? And they're like, we're desperate. This is your area of expertise. So would
Yes.
you teach? And I was like, well, I guess this is one way to find out if I
Yeah.
want to teach or not, is to just jump in.
Uh-huh.
So I taught that first class, and there was definitely a learning curve, right? I mean, going from being a student to being, essentially behind the podium was a
Yeah.
very different experience, but
Mhm.
I really liked it.
Mhm.
And so
Was
I
that for
taught.
one semester of experience?
Yes, but they decided to keep me on. So they said,
Uh-huh.
would you teach another class the next semester and then another class the next semester? So I taught for about 3 semesters before I decided that, I think this is what I want to do.
Uh-huh.
But I don't want to do it forever as kind of an adjunct lecturer,
Exactly.
where you have the piecemeal, you're never sure if you're going to have a class and can you really
Yeah.
afford to live on the salary of an adjunct. So it was at that point that I decided to go back and get the PhD,
Mhm.
which I completed at Utah as well. So I did that, and that too was a bit of a kind of winding experience. The
Mhm.
job market wasn't great as I was approaching the end of my PhD, so I decided, I'm going to apply for some fellowships and see if I can get some fellowships, and if so, I could tack on some interviews and go
Yes.
do some additional work for the dissertation,
Mhm.
which ended up happening. And so I spent some time in
Brilliant.
Europe doing some interviews, kind of stretched out the time that I spent on the dissertation.
Yes.
I was on the job market for 2 cycles before I was offered the position at University of Tennessee at Martin. So
Mm.
it was kind of a long winding path, but I eventually ended up here at UT Martin, and I'll
Mhm.
be starting my 6th year this August. So I'll be coming up for promotion and tenure this year. So
Yeah,
it
so
is an
despite the
exciting
long
moment.
winding road, as you saying, it's the process and not the destination, right? That really
Exactly.
inform your career trajectory. So in terms of personal quality, so we were talking about like, those competencies that we can develop as young people. What
Mhm.
would be the personal qualities that you think a young person should have to have a certain measure of aptitude and eventually success in your field of study and career?
I would say one of the biggest things is that you need to be curious about the world, right? So
Yes.
if you have this curiosity of like, why did they do this? Or like, what are they doing? And what is this? Then that is kind of a hallmark of like, this might be a good fit for you, right? You're curious, you want to know more about why we
Mm.
do the things we do. And is this the best way to do it? Are there other ways? Could we possibly, seek those out?
Yeah.
And that kind of dovetails into the next one, which is to have a willingness to ask questions, right? And a desire to learn new things. So it's kind of that curiosity paired with, okay, well, I'm going to ask these questions, right? I'm not just going to sit here and observe. I'm going to ask a question, whether it's an easy question, a complex question, and I want to learn, right? I'm going to ask and I want to learn about all of these things in the world, because the world is a huge place and there's so much to learn. And so
Mm.
having that curiosity and the desire to ask questions and to learn is huge.
Mhm.
I would also say that even if you don't have research skills, if you have an interest in research, and this could be something as simple as following the news, right? Because that kind of ties in with that curiosity and asking questions. Is
Yes.
you're following what's happening in the world, right? You're watching the news or YouTube or looking at like the BBC and just saying like, what's happening out there.
Yes.
And that could be politics, it could be culture, it could be the environment, but just an interest in like what's happening and doing some basic kind of keeping up with what's happening in the news, which of course then can dovetail to turning those into more marketable research skills as
Mm.
well. So I would say
That's
those are some of the top personal qualities that would really make somebody a good fit for political science and international studies.
Mhm. So, of course, this all leads up to, are we in a position now to actually dispense some of our well worth advice to young people on how they can develop themselves, prepare, and in fact, go into your field of study? So, in terms of like advising, of course, you're now in position to be a mentor to students. So maybe you could also give some of your insights as to how they can be in your field of study and career if they so choose to.
Absolutely. So I would say that political science and international studies are very approachable majors.
Mhm.
They are not majors that scare people off with in intense math or perhaps like scary science. These are majors that are really approachable for anybody, regardless of what they think their strengths or weaknesses are. And we often come to find out through college, right, that what we think are our weaknesses are not actually weaknesses, right? They're just areas where we have like a mental road block of thinking that they're going to be really challenging, and then we overcome
Yes.
them and you have that sense of accomplishment. But
Yes.
they're very approachable majors. So I would say, don't be afraid of thinking about these as potential majors, even if you haven't really been exposed to them in previous high school, junior high types of situations. And also, I would say, don't be afraid of change, right? Students often think that once they pick a major, they're stuck, right? That they're locked in with needing that major and just continuing through, even if they get a year in and they're suddenly like, oh, like I might have made a mistake. I'm not sure I'm as passionate about this as I once was. I have a lot of students who end up switching to political science and international studies who, had started down the nursing track or were a math major or were an English major. And, they were very scared about making that change. But once they did, they felt a lot better about their situation and the things that they were learning and were excited about it. Right. I mean, you want to be excited about what you're studying. And if that means making a change, don't be afraid of making that change. So, those would be kind of my first two is these are very approachable majors. Give them a shot. Don't be afraid of changing your major, even if you think you have started down a path and you decide it's maybe not the best fit. Something that echoes from when we were talking about experiential learning is take advantage of all the opportunities, right? Even if you are still in, say, high school, there's lots of opportunities available. And then once you transition to college, continue to take advantage of those opportunities. It's amazing how many students day in and day out go to class, go home, do their homework, never join organizations, never realize that there are travel studies, study abroad opportunities, that there's scholarships. So for example, here, as part of student fees and tuition, it goes into a pot of money that then students apply to for travel study and study abroad. And I don't think a lot of our students realize that this is essentially their money, right? That they've been paying in for the last several years. And I tell them, like, you should definitely take advantage of that, right? You've paid into the system. So go and travel and see the world, or participate in an internship, and there's scholarships for that. So take advantage of all of that, right? You never know until you try. And it can be such an eye-opening, life-changing experience, whether it's within the country, out of country, and the networks and the people that you meet make it immensely worthwhile. So take advantage of everything. And my last piece of advice would be, use your instructors as resources, right? So often students kind of are fearful of approaching their teachers or their professors. But we love it when you come talk to us, and we want you to come ask us questions related to the class, not related to the class. Come and ask us, like, I saw this in the news, or I've always wondered about this. Do you know anything? Could you, show me where to learn more about it? Or even just to talk about TV shows, right? I mean, some of the best conversations I've had with students are about pop culture and nothing related to,
or yes.
nothing related to political science. It's like, let's talk about our favorite TV shows. So don't be afraid of interacting with us outside of a classroom setting, because we really enjoy those conversations, and it can be a great way to build that kind of mentoring experience for all of us. So that would be some of my advice that, looking back, I would say, is kind of a good, well-rounded, anyone can benefit from.
Exactly. And finally, you did mention about the pandemic and how we actually had to immediately make a transition of something that we had not been used to. We did have digital technology, but to have a virtual reality that we had to deal with. And now, of course, we may again reintegrate. So, how do you foresee digital technology being a beneficial tool to the delivery of education for young people, as well as an advantage that they should really leverage in your particular field? Yes.
So I think one of the things that the pandemic has showed us is that we can still make connections even if we can't be there in person. And it's still immensely important to build those connections, right? Whether they're digital or face to face. And I think in some ways it broke down barriers. So for example, I take students to participate in Model United Nations, and usually we do kind of this Southern conference where, colleges and universities from around the South all gather in Charlotte, North Carolina, usually in the spring for like a 4-day,
experience.
Experience, kind of insight into how the UN works. And of course, this year and last year, we couldn't go in person because it just wasn't safe enough to. And so the organizers were great. They set it up virtually on Zoom. And it actually worked out better because schools who otherwise couldn't afford the travel, or it was too far for them to travel, were able to participate. And so we actually had a more diverse group of colleges and universities participate in this virtual format than we usually do in the face-to-face. So I think in terms of breaking down distance barriers, cost barriers, the digital technology really lends itself well to that. And so I hope that we will continue to take advantage of that part. So integrate both kind of face-to-face options, but also digital options.
Hybrid, yeah.
Continue to have webinars and exchanges like this where we can have, conversations and reach audiences that are in different countries and, take advantage of those experiences. It doesn't always have to be face-to-face. And I hope we will continue to remember the value that these types of digital interactions have brought this past year and a half, and kind of do more of a hybrid model where we do face-to-face where possible, and then we can sprinkle in, interject these awesome digital opportunities where possible as well.
Yes. So I think we've had such an exciting, actually very unique experience from like this whole academic year. And so thank you so much, Dr. Carrie Ruth Humphreys, of course, for the time that we have spent together working on the initiatives for global affairs. Maybe you could also tell us a little bit about the objective of your department, Global Affairs at the University of Tennessee in Martin.
So within the College of Business and Global Affairs, I am the chair of our Global Experiential Learning Council. And so we are trying to promote within our college more and more opportunities for our faculty and staff, because we have found that some faculty, like myself, kind of disproportionately participate and encourage these opportunities, and other faculty are a little bit more hesitant, are a little bit fearful of like the workload, and a lot of our faculty have themselves not been abroad, so there's that barrier as well. And so we're trying to make it more accessible for students and faculty to have a variety of opportunities, including some webinars, kind of take some baby steps of like, let's do some webinars between our university and universities in the Philippines or Japan, which April has been so great to make contacts for us with, and then move towards doing some more exchanges where our students could go abroad, their students could come visit us in Tennessee. But it's very much a building process. Of course, the whole pandemic has really just halted everything. But even before that, we were in a transition phase where the way we were doing things wasn't as sustainable as we would have liked it to be. And so then, that was already problematic. The pandemic just stopped everything. So it kind of offered us a blank slate of, like, okay, what can we do to best serve our faculty and staff within the college to offer as many opportunities as possible for them. So we're exploring, kind of the same advice that I gave everyone watching, take advantage of all the opportunities, explore all of these different paths, and just see, what we can take away from these opportunities that are before us.
Yes. So thank you so much, definitely, for all of your insightful discussion. And I look forward definitely to all our initiatives that we have started and hopefully can sustain for the future. So again, maybe last words to our viewers, again, the stakeholders of the education sector, Dr. Carrie Ruth Humphreys, please.
So final words. This has been an amazing summer to have April visit us, and she has been so awesome at hosting talks, bringing people together to have good conversations about educational opportunities, particularly experiential learning, but even just kind of leveraging people we already have on campus, right? So it's not always that we need to bring, somebody from the Philippines, although she is welcome back anytime.
Yes.
But we have a lot of diversity and international backgrounds, even amongst our own faculty. And so even just taking advantage of kind of our internal UTM family to a better degree than we have, I think is going to be a great benefit for our university, and then also for the eventual students that we'll be hosting on our campus as well. So these types of opportunities, the Fulbright exchanges, these types of webinars, interviews are all amazing things that contribute to education for students, faculty, and other stakeholders. So we're very appreciative.
Yes, thank you so much for such a wonderful time here at the University of Tennessee Martin, and I'm certainly looking forward to speaking to you again very soon.